What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blueblood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So we have some very, very interesting news. As undefeated 3-division world champion, who's currently the WBO, World Boxing Organization's reigning welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Terence Bud Crawford, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, who is now 38 wins, no losses, no draws, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 34 years of age, stands at 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. He's recently coming off of what is being considered the biggest win of his career, although he became undisputed at junior welterweight after defeating Julius Ndongo. Terence Bud Crawford, he faced two-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Shawn Porter, in which he got a 10th round knockout victory, where Terence Crawford, he dropped Shawn Porter twice in the 10th round, and ultimately Shawn Porter, his father, trainer, and manager Kenny Porter, threw in the towel, said he saw enough. With that said, Shawn Porter, he stated that he was starting to unravel. He was getting hit far too much, and he started to blame himself for the outcome. With that said, everybody wants to know what's next. Obviously, the biggest fight, the biggest rival for Terence Crawford is undefeated, unified WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Errol Spence Jr., who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 21 wins by way of knockout. He is 31 years of age, stands at 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. Errol Spence Jr. Was ringside and present at the fight for Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter. Okay? And everybody wants to see, is that the fight? That's the mega fight. That's the biggest fight in boxing. Well, we know Errol Spence, he's been on a long layoff. He was supposed to come back and fight August 21st against legendary 8-division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. But Errol Spence, two weeks prior, with a routine physical for the fight, they found that Errol Spence had a broken detached retina. He had to immediately have surgery. He was removed from the fight. Now everybody wants to see what's next for Errol Spence. As remember, just 12 days after unifying his title, September 28th of 2019 against Shawn Porter, very same Shawn Porter, Errol Spence suffered a horrific car accident. He was out for 14 months. He came back. He fought 2-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer Danny Swift Garcia December 5th of 2020. He dominated the fight, got a unanimous decision victory, but we haven't seen him in the ring since. So it's been a very long, quiet layoff for Errol Spence Jr. Okay, so that's the fight that everybody wants to see, Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Now, Terence Crawford, he was featured on the Porterweight podcast, and Terence Crawford, he stated that he wants to fight Errol Spence Jr., he wants to fight former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman, or he wants to fight Cuban superstar boxer who's the WBA, World Boxing Association super champion, Yordenis Ugas. He stepped in for Errol Spence. He faced Manny Pacquiao. He was supposed to be the co-main event, and he dominated Manny Pacquiao, won a unanimous decision against Manny Pacquiao. But it seems like Yordenis Ugas, as he stated, had a deal in place for him to face off against Errol Spence Jr. in February in a unification bout. But the WBA, they had other plans. They decided to put Yordenis Ugas in a tournament where he has to face Stanionis in his next fight. Stanionis only has 13 fights. Now, there's also another fight looming, because Jamal James, he fought against Butev, and Jamal James lost the fight against Butev. And now Butev is waiting to face, he became the regular champion, and he's waiting to face the winner of Yordenis Ugas and Stanionis. So that's being ordered. So Terence Crawford, he said he wanted to face Ugas, Errol Spence, or Keith Thurman. Well, we know Keith Thurman, he recently is on record, and he just recently stated that he would be ready for a Terence Crawford fight in 8 months. Okay, now it looks like Keith Thurman is going to have a comeback tune-up fight in about February, March time as well. Now we know Keith Thurman, He hasn't fought since July 20th of 2019 when he fought Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, and Pacquiao beat him for his WBA title. Keith Thurman too was inactive, okay, and because of that, now that's the last time Keith Thurman's fought. So it would be 3 years in the summertime, July, since the last time we saw Keith Thurman in the ring. Keith Thurman says he's back in the gym, he's back working out, and he's looking to get back in the ring. He'll be ready for Terence Crawford in 8 months. So looks like Keith Thurman is looking for a tune-up. But you could possibly see Terence Crawford against Keith Thurman. With that said, Terence Crawford, his pay-per-view numbers was only 190,000 pay-per-view buys with Sean Porter. Now you got to keep in mind, Terence Crawford, when going back and forth with Errol Spence, he stated that Sean Porter carried the Errol Spence Sean Porter fight that did 325,000 pay-per-views, and now he faced the same opposition in Sean Porter, and it only does 190,000 pay-per-views. So it begs the question. Now Errol Spence, we know he stated, I told y'all I'm the big fish, okay? So with that said, is Errol Spence going to waver? We know a sticking point for Errol Spence, Terence Crawford was stating that he wanted a 50-50 split, and Errol Spence was stating that I'm the bigger draw, I'm the bigger brand, okay? I've done, my pay-per-view numbers are proven to be bigger than yours. Should be 60-40 split in my favor, okay? Is that going to be a sticking point? Because Terence Crawford, he wants 50-50 split. So that may be a holdup with that fight, okay? And Terence Crawford, he understands and identifies. And Terence Crawford, he's now being very vocal about how he feels, since we know Terence Crawford is now parting ways with longtime promoter, legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter Bob Arum, ESPN, and Top Rank. He's now going elsewhere. It's being reported that Terence Crawford is going to be with MTK Global as an advisor team. He's going to be doing fight-by-fight basis. Okay, so Terence Crawford essentially is going to be with Terence Bud Crawford's Promotions, his own promotional company, and he'll be working with MTK Global as an advisor team, is what's being reported. Okay, so Terence Crawford, he states that his numbers are that way because ESPN decided to put it on the app, and that, you know, essentially he feels like Bob Arum, they haven't promoted him correctly. As we know, they haven't. Bob Arum shows that, and he has little to no interest in putting up any type of big money to promote Terence Bud Crawford. He even stated on record that he lost so much money on Terence Crawford he could build a mansion in Beverly Hills from scratch. He stated that Terence Crawford is just not a big draw. Terence Crawford had been looking to seek a fight with Manny Pacquiao for the better part of 4 to 5 years, and was unable to secure the fight with Manny Pacquiao. And Bob Arum, he let it be known that they could have secured the fight with Pacquiao for Terence Crawford, but they didn't want to put up the money, and they didn't see a return on their investment being possible, so they was unwilling to do so. They had an investment group in Abu Dhabi that was willing to put up the money, but they fell out. And once they fell out and dropped out, Bob Arum stated that, you know, they were unwilling to put up the money. So Terence Crawford is saying that the reason for his low pay-per-view numbers, his first pay-per-view against Victor Postal did a report 60,000 pay-per-views. His second pay-per-view with Amir Khan did a reported 150,000 pay-per-views. So that's 210 combined thousand pay-per-views. And now his most recent fight with Sean Porter did 190,000 pay-per-views. And everybody pointed to the lack of opposition star power for the reason Terence Crawford not doing bigger pay-per-view numbers. Well, now he had one of those star powers, one of those guys in Sean Porter that everybody pointed to Errol Spence having the proper dance partner to bolster his pay-per-view numbers. Now Terence Crawford, he shared another the same proper dance partner, and it only did 190,000 pay-per-views. So Terence Crawford, he stated that it's because of ESPN Plus, it being on the app, and because the lack of interest of promoting him by his former promotional company and Bob Arum. Okay, we know Terence Crawford post-fight press conference after knocking out Sean Porter in a 10th round, he sat on the podium with Bob Arum, and he stated that Bob Arum couldn't secure him the big fights, mainly the Errol Spence fight, when they was together. So how's Bob Arum going to secure Errol Spence or a big fight when he's not with Bob Arum? And he says that I'm moving on with my career, wish everybody well. Okay, so he let it be known that he's parting ways with Top Rank, ESPN, and Bob Arum. Okay, so it's no secret that he feels like he's underappreciated as he is. Okay, so with that said, he also says that he has interest in fighting Keith Thurman. Now we know Terence Crawford, when coming into the welterweight division, he viewed Keith Thurman as the man to beat in the welterweight division. He viewed Keith Thurman as the best welterweight in the world, and that was the fight that he needed to, solidify himself as the best welterweight to fight and beat Keith Thurman. Now, Keith Thurman, he only has one loss to Manny Pacquiao. The problem with Keith Thurman is inactivity, and he's just starting to be somewhat out of sight, out of mind, okay? So his relevancy is starting to waver because the fans are starting to look at the landscape of this welterweight division, and Keith Thurman is becoming an afterthought simply because of his inactivity. Not because he can't fight, not because he doesn't have skills, but simply because he's just not fighting. It's going on 3 years since the last time you saw Keith Thurman in the ring. And then he had 2 fights in 2019 was Manny Pacquiao and Josito Lopez. But he was inactive for 2 years before he came back in 2019 from the last time he fought Danny Garcia in a unification bout in 2017. Okay, so it's just inactivity on the part of Keith Thurman. But Keith Thurman, he's excited about possibility of facing Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is in position to make the Keith Thurman fight happen. And it looks like that is the biggest chance fight that's going to happen because I don't think that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford will come to an agreement. Now, I hope that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford will come to an agreement and fight ASAP, but it don't look like that could possibly be next. Anything could happen. I'm hoping and fingers crossed that that is the fight that happens next. So we got to see how this unfolds. But Terence Crawford, he says the reason for his lack of big numbers as far as pay-per-view is due to the lack of promotion on the part of Top Rank Bob Arum and the fact that the fight was on the app. Now, I know people are going to combat that and they're going to say, well, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder fought on the app and they did huge numbers, okay? But as the heavyweight division goes, so goes the sport of boxing. And that fight was heavily promoted and the fight itself promoted itself, okay? They're 2 big personalities, and they're not ever short on words, so they promote the fight themselves. So we got to see how this unfolds and plays out. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section, let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
You're watching Blue Blood Sports TV. Wow.